It is just a total information overload of key information on so many fronts, and I will cover all of these stacks I have. But first off, I was browsing Infowars.com further down the page and reading articles that we had linked to in the last 3 or 4 days that I hadn't had time to look at. And I saw one about raids on health food stores in Southern California, and I watched the surveillance camera footage of a health food store selling goat milk that you can buy right here in Austin, and they raided them with guns and were screaming at them and pointing guns at people at a health food store, at hippies that wouldn't hurt a fly. And it just illustrates how out of control the federal and state governments are. This was a federal/state/local police raid, and it just got me so hot. So that is going to be coming up later in this hour. There's no audio on the video, but it's linked up on Infowars.com. But for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers, we'll be playing the surveillance camera footage. And for radio listeners, I'll be describing it. But you can go to Infowars.com and go to the story from the Los Angeles Times. Headline, Raw Food Raid Highlights a Hunger. And I'm seeing reports like this around the country every week or two, where you'll have a family of farmers selling eggs and watermelons out on the side of the road, and they send an undercover officer to buy eggs and watermelons, and they arrest them for not supposedly paying sales tax, or they arrest them for selling eggs or milk or cheese, or they raid their homes, and they're harassing the Amish now. And it just illustrates the fact that Prudential and other insurance companies are in a detailed Bloomberg report. Got to say, I don't like Mayor Bloomberg, but I really like Bloomberg, his company. I mean, the news, the investigative reports they put out dwarf anything I'm seeing in the world. And time again, they report things we already know, but they're the only mainstream outlet to detail it. And it's how Prudential and others are swindling, and it's admittedly illegal. They take out insurance policies on troops, and then when the troops get killed, they don't even pay any of the insurance to the families, and they send them a letter to basically steal the money from them, to manipulate them. And then now that they might pay a fine that's a tiny fraction, it's not just Prudential, it's others, according to Bloomberg. It's just these banks and insurance companies are criminals, and they run the government. They're the ones setting up this whole new world order. So that's coming up. I also have talked a lot in the last decade about Google being an NSA front and actually being a crystal ball to tell the future. That's not my words. I've read that in declassified Pentagon documents. But here it is in Wired magazine today. Google openly announces they can tell the future. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. It is Thursday, the 29th day of July, 2010. We again have a jam-packed radio transmission for you today. Member of the Icelandic Parliament to talk about WikiLeaks and a lot more, because she's worked with them. Birgitta Jones-Dottier pops in the second half of the next hour. Then Ray McGovern and Phil Berg. Extremely informative information. Of course, Phil Berg, attorney, the founder of the birther movement, which is continuing to pick up steam despite media disinformation and demonization, and Ray McGovern, high-level CIA analyst to Ronald Reagan and George Bush Sr., will get his inside scoop on the green lighting of the attack on Iran. But in the next hour and 20 minutes or so, before the guests start joining us today, we've got a lot of news to cover and a short time to get there. So let me just do this. Let me just read the headlines, just the headlines, and then I'm going to go back through it in more detail. But just to give you an idea what we're dealing with. White House proposal would ease FBI access to records of Internet activity. ISPs, your personal computers, everything, no Fourth Amendment. And it says right here in the first paragraph, without warrants, just the complete end of the Fourth Amendment. And I was driving into work this morning. In fact, I'm tempted to call KLBJ 590 because I'm friends with them. They carry the show. And get them to get me that call that came in at about 10:25. fact, will you guys call Thomas McDonald? His number is in my phone. He actually called me yesterday. And call him and ask if he can MP3 us that lady saying, I want to give up my liberty for freedom. I want the FBI to search all our computers. This Constitution is bad. It's going to allow the terrorists to attack us, and we've got to let the government do whatever it wants. And I just wanted to scream at her. In fact, I was actually yelling at the radio and telling her, lady, governments are always what is most dangerous. This government is so corrupt, has been caught lying so many times, is run by such corrupt corporations that have hijacked it. What are you talking about? The entire homeland security apparatus was built and designed and is pointed at the American people. That's on record. But she is just the perfect example. I've got to get that call. I've got to get that call and play it here on air, because she was just as stupid and mindless as the woman who I interviewed in London at a vegetable and fruit stand right outside one of the places that got bombed. And I walk up to her and I talk about how the police had killed an innocent man just a few days after the attack, execution style. And she said, well, I think we should give up our liberty for freedom. What an oxymoron. This woman I heard today was even stupider than that. And she illustrates everything we're fighting, how these sheeple just love to be slaves. But I'm sorry, I'd read the headlines. I'm already digressing here. White House proposal would ease FBI access to records of Internet activity. And then you read the article, it says no longer have any warrants. Look at this incredible Google story out of Wired magazine. Headline, exclusive, Google CIA invest in future of web monitoring in live time. CIA tracking everything you do live time. No warrants, no nothing. Now listen to this first line. I'm going to get back into this later, but how many times have you heard me talk about this? Word for word. And I've gotten a lot of people making jokes about it on the web and saying I'm crazy. They won't go research my facts. They just say I'm lying. The investment arm of the CIA, In-Q-Tel, and Google are both backing a company that monitors the web in real time and says it uses the information to predict the future. That's what all of this is about. RFID, face scanning cameras, they're already doing it. They are already predicting mass movements to upwards of 99% and individual movements up to 93%. And that's what they admit. They know what you're going to do before you do it. That's what this is really all about. And Google is the NSA. Here's another key article. 7 people have been entrusted with the keys to the entire Internet. 7 people can bring down the entire domain system and shut the web off in a matter of seconds. We're going to be covering that. Also out of NBC, details of 100 million Facebook users published online. Facebook had told them they would never share it if you wanted to be a private profile. Not anymore, because he thinks you're a bunch of dumb effers. Remember that quote? These dumb effers think they can trust me. They are such schmucks. Ha, ha, ha. Ha, ha, ha. And, of course, Facebook is admittedly CIA. Twitter is admittedly run by the State Department, which is the international conglomerate arm of the CIA. And it's just all about flaunting it in your face and trying to break your will. Here's another important report out of Alternet. Has the most common marijuana test resulted in tens of thousands of wrongful convictions? The answer is yes. It's all quackery, just like what we see going on with the old lie detector test. And so they're now replacing those with brain scanners and predictive pre-crime systems. So we'll be discussing all of that. And Kurt Nimmo has got an excellent article that's up on Infowars.com right now that details this pre-crime so-called prediction system. The problem is they can put any false data they want into this and falsely claim that the system predicted that you were going to commit a crime. And that's the issue with this panopticon, is that we know governments will abuse it. We know the Founding Fathers warned us about this type of thing. And we know that they've been caught putting out disinfo as well. But Google and CIA fund political pre-crime technology is the Kurt Nemo story that just went up on Infowars.com in the last 30 minutes, and we're going to be going over that as well today. In some of the other news, document leak, part of U.S. plot, says Pakistani ex-general with ties to the Taliban, the former head of Pakistani intelligence, Hamid Gul, who, again, a year and a half ago, came out and said that the West had staged the attacks in Mumbai. The head of Indian intelligence and said the same thing, and lo and behold, a year later, it came out in mainstream U.S. news that indeed the commander of the people that attacked the shopping mall in Mumbai, India, were government agents from the United States. So, but again, when that finally came out in the mainstream news, it was just a mere blurb, should have been the top story. Instead, we know that Google and others that are NSA fronts pump the web with basically fake top search terms like Mel Gibson, Lindsay Lohan, LeBron James. They basically set the agenda for petty, mindless issues as one of their other control systems. I'm going to cover this more coming up later in the hour, but for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers, let's just start playing some of that video for folks to be able to see it. This is, again, linked up on Infowars.com. Raw food raids highlights a hunger. Some people balk at restrictions on selling unprocessed milk and other foods. How can we not have the freedom to choose what we eat? One says regulators say rules exist for safety and fairness. And they come in to the health food store in the back door in their warehouse with their guns drawn. And when they see the hippies in there at the health food store, the officers point their guns at them and tell them, get on the floor. So they're going to expand the drug war into your farms and ranches. Big Agra is writing rules that will shut down all the small farms and ranches, and just they've raided farms that grow things like aloe vera, saying it can supposedly get you high. They want to make you have to get a prescription for vitamin C. It's all part of Codex Alimentarius, so that is coming up as well. Here's another one. White House backs bill to collect employee pay information from all businesses, the total tracking grid. Axe falls on National Health Services. They're massively slashing all different types of surgeries, basic health care, eye surgeries. They're saying, get a cane. Just like in Cuba, you don't get eye surgery. They say, use a cane. You're 65. You're supposed to go start losing your eyesight. Get a cane, old lady. Get a cane, old man. NHS bosses have drawn up secret plans for sweeping cuts to services with restrictions on the most basic treatments for the sick and injured. Hope you enjoy the eugenics health care. Hope you enjoy the Malthusian health care, because it is here, and it's here big time. And I mentioned this at the very start of the show. We're going to get some guests on about this in the next week, because I'm really hot about this. And I'd read about this here and there, but this detailed 15-page report from Bloomberg is nothing less than stunning. Fallen soldiers' families denied cash as insurers profit. And then you read the article, and it talks about how these insurance companies take out insurance on troops, and then because they name the families as beneficiaries but write it up where they send them a blank checkbook saying, here's your money, it's in this account. But then it's a fake checkbook. When you go to cash them, the money's not good. And then they keep the money, and they're saying, well, since we're not FDIC, we're allowed to keep your money. And Walmart does this. They take insurance out on those greeters, and they have actuaries. They know statistically how many are going to die per year. People are like, oh, sweet, they're giving that 79-year-old lady who's had 2 heart attacks and cancer a job greeting people. No, they got $1 million or more of insurance on her, and her family isn't getting it. I mean, this is the pure evil. And these are the banks and insurance companies that run this nation.